How do you do suburbs right? That's a question asked throughout city planning history as street layouts and priorities have shifted. Something changed in the US in the 1950s, with development shifting away from urban areas and into the edge of metropolitan areas. This is where everyone wanted to live, getting all the city amenities without all the hustle and bustle. But it resulted in American suburbanization, a planning process that resulted in cities growing cul-de-sac by cul-de-sac, with a lack of real relationships between neighborhoods. That's where we found these sprawling regions, with low-density buildings with yards and massive garages that make me want to puke. It feels like most people acknowledge how bad they are, but it continues, because realistically, who wouldn't want to live in a large house with a yard and a white picket fence? This means that to fix the issue, there needs to be a way to do suburban cities better, and that's where Carmel, Indiana comes in. This city has been leading the country in the suburban redevelopment game, with hundreds of projects that have pretty much totally redesigned the city these past few decades. So today I want to explore why they're doing this, with nearly every signalized intersection being replaced since 1990, and how this has changed the city, with the downtown being pretty much totally redefined. Before the video though, I wanted to ask if you would please consider subscribing to the channel. We make geography and city content like this every week, so if you enjoy what I'm doing, subscribing is a really easy way to help me out. Thank you! Alright, let's take a step back and talk about where Carmel is. So the city is located in Indiana, specifically the northern Indianapolis suburbs. This metropolitan area may not seem like the most exciting ever, but there's actually a ton of character. And what's important here is that the suburbs, very specifically the northern suburbs, are growing. Hamilton County, which the city is located in, is the third fastest growing county in the state, increasing by a whopping 1.9% in 2024. With Carmel being the county's largest community, the population is up at 100,700, which is fairly large for a suburb, putting it around somewhere like Yuma, Arizona for city proper. As far as overall layout goes, it's north of I-465, and the downtown area is between the Keystone Parkway and US 31. The city center is located in this area, and north of that is the Arts and Design District. Finally, the Monon Trail runs directly through the downtown districts, which has become more and more important, as you'll soon learn. Carmel is an affluent city with a median household income right around $114,000, and this has only increased. That's considered good, and this entire region of Indianapolis has high incomes, allowing for easy redevelopment projects, which has gone into the city's history. So, what's special about Carmel? Well, it all started in the mid to late 1900s when suburban growth really began. The population was only around 1,000 in 1960, but a big change in the area occurred, which was the construction of Interstate 465, which gave the area new economic development and boosted the population up to 7,000. Slowly, farmland turned into beautiful cul-de-sac slop, but getting to around 1990, the city began making some changes. But the biggest change came in 1996 when my absolute boy Jim Brainerd was elected mayor of the city that now had a population of nearly 30,000. See, he saw the situation that the city was in. It had high income with plenty of property tax, and it was seeing the effects of this growth. Traffic was increasing, and it was expanding in a way any other suburb would. But they had the opportunity to fix it. So the city, with its newly progressive city planning ideology, approved the building of roundabouts, absolutely everywhere. This was a success, and they never looked back. The city replaced nearly every intersection that previously had a traffic signal with a roundabout. Carmel now has over 140 roundabouts, all of which were built between 1990 and 2025, and the results are hard to deny. Traffic injuries decreased by around 80%, and overall crashes decreased by 40%. Keep in mind, the city grew by like 70,000 residents, so you'd think crashes would increase, but Carmel became the roundabout capital of the country, and it was a monumental success. These new roundabouts also gave them the opportunity to put forms of art in the median area. Things like modern art as well as fountains have added character to the circular dizzy machines. But Carmel didn't stop there. It may be known for its transportation changes, but the city has had one of the most insane redevelopment processes seen in an American suburban area, and they've done it in a very new urbanist way, focusing on mixed-use zoning and walkability. In the city center district, there's a focus on relation to the road, with large high-density buildings with character. Also in the city center, there's a large plaza with a reflection pool. This looks straight out of London or a state capital, not suburban Indiana. It's absolutely insane. Furthermore, the bulk of these buildings are actually either regular office buildings being home to insurance companies, or just apartment buildings, like this entire part of the city center. This is so strange when you compare it to somewhere like, let's say, Ankeny, Iowa, which is much less character in its downtown. Sorry for calling you guys out there. Up in the arts district, it seems like every undeveloped area now has a building. This large building was constructed with European architecture, where back in 2007, it was just a simple little Midwest downtown. Going down Main Street a bit, we see the same type of high-density development, and something I find particularly interesting about this is that they design it to be built right up to the road, when a lot of places will put the parking lot closest to the road. Carmel focuses on how it's going to feel for tourists or other walkers in the downtown, and sort of hides these kind of ugly parking areas. Now, Main Street is important, but what I've found is that the entire downtown is focused around the Monon Trail, something you simply don't see in suburban communities. Over the past 10 to 20 years, this trail has been lined with mixed-use development and nice forestation. Look at what this trail looked like back just 9 years ago in 2016. It's your average urban trail, built on what was formerly a railroad. But present day, it's been replaced with bricks, lined with apartments, and it looks like a totally different world. It's just insane. This continues down through the Arts District, but in the city center, it's also along some nice large apartments. And the coolest part about it is that the trail goes all the way down to downtown Indianapolis, providing a navigable bike or pedestrian path right down into the main city. Rather than being built around a highway or some sort of road, this entire central area is centered on a path. Carmel has invested over $1.3 billion into its redevelopment process, and that's resulted in a high amount of debt. The city claims it's a necessary investment that will be returned, but it's a difficult topic that comes with the city of this nature. It then brings up the question, because of course everything good has something bad and we can't just be happy in life. What's wrong with Carmel? Well, simply it's really expensive. Okay, getting a bit more complicated though, there's been a large history of gentrification with this redevelopment process, which is basically the process of replacing poorer areas with wealthier development, in turn driving up the price of the entire area. An article by a local news source detailed how some Carmel residents have been forced out of the city due to rising costs, and this can be clearly seen with the median income, which has risen by $14,000 just since 2011. On somewhere like Smoky Row Road, north of the downtown, you can see how a normal single-family home turns into a massive apartment complex, which means the current owners got bought out and had to leave. This is the biggest issue with a city like this, because when you focus on these nice urbanist walkable buildings that fit with the urban fabric, it's difficult to create affordable housing, something the city now severely lacks. So with all that being said, is Carmel doing it right? This is something we don't really see in American suburbs, and it feels like a refreshing attempt at deviation, despite the 2/3 of the city I did mention being very similar to other US suburbs. I guess one of the main knocks you could have is that it's all fake and mostly pre-planned with a lack of history, but I genuinely believe Carmel has worked to the extent that they've created a new culture for themselves as an expensive new urbanist suburb, not something many people can say. And even areas that are very difficult to develop well, like the commercial hub west of the downtown, they've done visible work to make things fit the idea of Carmel, which could potentially be a new model for affluent suburbs in the US. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week: Sergi C17, Cedric Zhang, Jerome McCall, The Big Fruit, Andres Quintero, Jesse Cook, Lufty Hank, Lady Nightingale, J. Allen Rigo, The Autistic City Skylines Fan, Richard Law, Jake Huffs, Alexander Lichko, The Road Dude, Charles Watson, Aiden Kyle, Somnam Woods, Javi Hodag, Reginald Wilkerson, Grant Dickerson, Julius Landry, Doug R., Midwest Rail Fan, DS, Richard Horwell, Mick Kastner, D, Stephen Phillips, CJ Brick, Big Pasty, Rosing Contrarian, Hazev the Wolf, Bunny, Brock Sanders, Stephen Priestman, SB Wilder, Florida Jake, Alex Williams, Makita Martinoff, Kurt Ainsley, KMS162, Bryson, Rosewood 4, Darkbird 73, Wolfling 73, Snyder Schwein, Benjamin Whitings, and Ryan Devins. I appreciate you all so much. You've done so much for the channel. If you appreciate the content and you want to help me out as a person, that's the best way to do it. Thank you.